I learned how to turn way before there were jigs, so I can do these grinds by hand, but I choose not to. I use the jigs mainly because it's fast, it's easy, and I don't grind away my tool as fast by using a jig. The whole issue of using a jig is to go back to the grinding wheel on exactly the same repeatable angle that we did it the last time. There are many jigs on the market. I just have 4 of them here that people use. David, I think, was the original one, the Ellsworth jig that he originally made. Packard has made one similar that have a stationary arm, and many people have made these themselves, just home-built ones. These are good and work for usually just one or a small number of tools that you want at the similar angle. The other tools, the Wolverine or one-way jig, and the newer one is the woodcut and true grind. I like the true grind because of its versatility. I can do more things with it a little bit easier. Let's take a close-up of this one. Many people around the country have the Wolverine jig, and I want to get a close-up on this little metal flap here. Can you see the metal scarf marks on there where the black paint used to be? And every time whoever owns this pull that tool out of the jig, that metal flap raked across the sharp edge. If he's doing that every time he sharpens, he's never sharpened with a sharp tool. It's always raked across that metal edge and taken the edge off before he even starts. So that's why I like the woodcut better, because it's got a V-groove and a nice strong mechanism to hold it square and flat, and you can just pull the tool out and done deal. You don't have to fight with that metal flap. We only need to know 2 things. We need to know how to set the tip angle, and we need to know how to set the side angle. And once we understand that, I can take this jig and I can grind any tool in your toolbox to any angle, the tip or the side. We need to first of all set the tool up, extending out from the jig a little bit. I have just a little plastic 2-inch guide here that registers true and flat, and I bring the tool rest or the grinding jig up to it and tighten it down. Now the key is that it's repeatable, that it's the same every time. So if I just draw a pencil line on the table, or if I come up here and try to line up, and this is about 2 inches, I could use that amount there. It's not going to be the same every time. So this allows me to, and if I'm putting it on the table, all I need to do is make it crooked on the table, and then it's not going to register the same every time. So getting the more time and energy we can put into setting this up perfectly, the less metal I'm going to have to grind away. So I've got 2 inches to start with. Let's get into setting this up now. Remember the 2 things that we need to be able to do. I need to be able to set the tip. All right, let me get this back just a little bit to give us a starting point. All right, in order to set the tip, I'm going to loosen the jig arm, and I'm going to sight right down, and the camera's really in a good place to do that. I'm going to sight right down and visualize the bevel just touching the grinder so that the heel and toe is on. And if I want it to be a steeper grind, what I can do, I can just lower the handle a bit and make a steeper grind. If I want it blunter, I can come back the other way. But in this case, I just want to set it up where it was before. So I'm going to come on there, get it close, I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. Then I'm going to turn the grinder with my thumb and just make a little mark on it and look at it and see where the mark is, and I'm lucky. It's right directly heel to toe, so I'm in a good place. If it wasn't perfect, if I was just grinding a little bit on the heel, I can adjust it. All right, so now that's the tip angle is set by the jig arm. Now I'm going to roll this all the way over, get my body out of the way here, and lay it on its side. What I need to do to change the side grind is to move the basket in and out. All right, if I move the basket in and out, it twists the tool, and I set the side grind. So that's all we need to know. Set the tip with the jig arm, set the side with the basket. Once you understand that, you can do any tool in your toolbox. Now I'm going to go back to the tip again. If you keep the camera in close, we'll look, it's going to be off, isn't it? All right, now the tip is hitting and the heel isn't. So now I need to move the arm of the jig down to here and get that lined up again. All right. And then look at the side again. Now my heel is sitting a little bit. I'm going to move it back. When I do this twice, set the tip angle, set the side angle, go back and set the tip again and the side again. Going through that sequence twice, now I'm really close to where I was before. And roll that, take a good look at it. It's a little bit just on the tip, just a hair on the tip. So once I have this set up, then I can use it like this forever. Now there are some times when I want to get a steeper grind in some detail area, and so I can pick up a spindle gouge. This has about a 62 to 65 degree bevel angle, and I want my spindle gouge to be steeper. And so let me show you a little trick. Now, so that I don't have to move the jig arm and I don't have to move the basket, if I put a little spacer block in here, in this case it happens to be one that I have that's in 50 degrees. I've got 50 and 45. So I put the spacer block in here. What does that do? It moves the pivot point up, and that makes my grind steeper. Okay? So now I can take a steep spindle gouge with a steeper angle, put it in the same jig, leaving the basket in the same place, the same 2 inches, and only this is giving me a different grind. If we go to the grinder with the attitude of sharpening the edge, and we sharpen the edge, and we sharpen the edge, and we sharpen the edge, sometimes we don't have a good focus on the heel of the bevel, and we start to get a hump in it. All right? On 2 of the cuts that we're going to use, the pulling cut and the pushing cut, we need to have the bevel support. All right? So if we end up with a grind like this, the cut's happening here and there's no bevel support. And so that's going to be really aggressive and dangerous to use. Let's lower the handle and get the bevel on, then it's not going to cut. So this is a disaster waiting to happen, and many times this is what we end up with trying to hand grind. I'm going to put this hand on top and the other hand underneath, and I'm just going to roll my wrist over. Now look at my body and look at my face. My head is in a comfortable position. I want the grinder at a level, you know, about where the spindle of my lathe is, up high, so that, in my case, so my bifocals work and I can see what's going on here. But I need to be able to see the sparks going over the edge for the entire pass. If I'm standing back here and I roll that over, I'm not going to be able to see the sparks. So I need to get my head straight over it here. And look at where the handle's going. The handle's going away from me. It's not in my way. My body's not in my way. I'm not out of control. I'm not uncomfortable. I'm not outbalanced. I'm standing here comfortably. All right? And then I'm going to switch to the other hand. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to put this hand on top and this hand underneath to hold it in the basket and just roll my wrist over. All right? If you have your hand down here, the vibration and forces are going to scoot it out of the basket. Okay? As uncomfortable as this feels and as awkward as it is right in the beginning, and the first time you do it, you say, oh man, this is weird. Because the handle's over there kind of pulling us away and we got to hang on to it, and it really feels funky. A few times, half a dozen times on this, you don't even think about it anymore. It just becomes routine. But now you've got repeatable angles to grind with. So while we're grinding, we want the sparks to go over the edge and down the flute. If the sparks are going under, then it's not sharp. If the sparks are going over, we know that it's sharp. All right. See the sparks going over the flute? Now I'm just going to have a light touch because I'm not going to grind. You know, grinders are made to grind metal away. We're not using them that way. We're just going to dress this bevel lightly and the edge is going to come sharp. So I need to have a light touch, and what Jim has on this grinder here is a 60 grit wheel. I would rather have 80, but lots of people use 60 and 80 and 100 and different ones. I think any coarser than 60 leaves a serrated edge. Any finer than 100 is too fine of a cut. It heats up the tool and doesn't leave a good burr behind. So 60 and 80 is what I like, or 80 and 100. Okay, so let's go back to this. I'm going to grind it. See the sparks all the way down the heel and then stop. All right, now that should be all there is to it. If we can see that. Nice polished surface all around. If I had any dull spots, any places I didn't get, it would show up right now. Just take a quick inspection and then go to the other side. I'm going to do this in 2 halves. I can't get my body far enough away and still be able to see and swing the handle a full swing, so I want to do it in 2 halves. I'm going to come over on this side and we're going to switch hands. We're going to put the other hand on top and have this hand underneath to hold it in the basket, and again very gently. Okay, take a look at it. Nice polished surface. Because I moved the jig and the basket and everything, I'm really lucky that I got this in 1 pass. Sometimes it would take a couple passes the first time you set it up, but once it's set up, it should work like this all the time. Very light cut, dress the bevel, and it's sharp. All right, let's talk about dressing a second, dressing the wheels and keeping them true and not letting the metal particles build up on them. The most important part about dressing is not the dressing stone or wheel. You can get the fancy diamond dressers or this stone thing that you can get at hardware stores that is a lot cheaper. It really doesn't matter. They both work nicely. But the most important thing about dressing is the tool rest. We need to firmly plant the dressing stone against the tool rest and sneak up on the edge so that it runs true. If I just push this against here, and if it's not running true, and we'll hear it in a minute that it's not running true, you're just perpetuating that unroundness. And so by putting it down on the tool rest, I don't have a tool rest now, so I'm going to use the housing of the grinder. If I can't touch the housing of the grinder, sometimes I can just take my tool or a 2x4 or anything and hold it against the housing so that I can get the dressing stone up to it and just sneak. Now listen closely. I think you'll be able to hear that it's going to go drrrr, and once I get it true, then that bounciness is going to go off and it'll be a solid sound. So let's see if we can hear it. Can you hear the bouncing? And once the bouncing goes away and the black metal particles are gone, then I've trued it up and it's running true. Many people have trouble with vibrating grinders, and if you want, you could buy these balancing equipment that you can balance the wheels with, but it's going to run pretty close to balance once we true the circumference up. But what causes almost always the cause of a vibrating grinder is not the wheel out of balance, but it running out of true. It's going to wobble. Okay, that wheel is going to wobble like this as it's going around. Jim's got this really nice and true that both are running true, and so the grinder does not vibrate. But if yours does vibrate, how do you stop the wobble? It's the wobble that's causing the vibration. All right, so we have to take the housing off, unloosen the nut, move it a little bit on the arbor, tighten the nut back up, and I'm going to put my thumb here on the edge with the housing and just roll it by hand like this. Okay, when you do that the first time, it's probably still going to wobble. All right, so you take it off again, take the nut off, you move it, and you test it, and it still wobbles, and you stop it, and you take it off, and you put it on. You might have to do that 4 or 5 times, might be 10 times, who knows. One of those times, you're going to get lucky and that wheel's going to run true without any wobble, stop the vibration. So get your wheels running true and you don't have to deal with that problem.